Hey everyone, Wolf Lord Rho here. Today we continue our series making a case for each Primarch being the greatest, as we reach the Phoenician, Fulgrim. A general spoiler warning to begin, as today we will be referencing events from across the Warhammer 40k universe, so you have been warned, and with that said, let's waste no time and just jump straight in. Well, we're diving into the final half of the remaining Primarchs now, and there's definitely still some big hitters to come. A Vulcan, a Rogal Dawn, a Horus Lupercal. Primarchs who had real spotlight upon them throughout the Heresy series. However, if you're overlooking some of the other names remaining, well, you could find yourself making a very grave error. And none more so than with Fulgrim. In thinking why the Phoenician deserves to be heralded as the greatest amongst the Primarchs, honestly, I find myself landing on the exact same reasons on why he's so often overlooked and underrated, which for me he absolutely is. And I'll admit by myself more often than not. But if you watch the upload I did on why Fulgrim's the most underrated Primarch before, you're going to get a case of deja vu here, as the examples of Fulgrim's greatness are pretty clear cut. Let's start with the big one, his defeating of Ferrus Manus. Ferrus gets a bad rap for his early exit in the Heresy series, but the dude was an absolute walking, talking battle tank. He was a Primarch bigger than Vulcan, undoubtedly one of, if not the strongest Primarchs going, at the bare minimum giving the Lord of Drakes a run for his money, a guy who could walk through any fire, weather any storm, no matter the odds. A man who was a commander revered and respected by Guilliman, who classed him amongst his dauntless few, who was named in command of the Retribution Force sent to bring in the traitor Warmaster, and a warrior filled with righteous fury upon the battlefield. A warrior the Emperor never doubted. And Fulgrim beat him. Not once, but twice. The first time knocking him out to escape, and the second, the infamous decapitation upon Istvan. Those victories shouldn't be seen as a detriment to Ferrus. They should be seen as an absolute example of Fulgrim's brilliance. I'll admit it's hard to remember now with Fulgrim's ascension, his apparent waning interest on anything other than self-indulgence. But back in the early years of the series, Fulgrim's name was mentioned as very much amongst the skill of Sanguinius and, say, Jagatai Khan. We know how highly and strongly the Kargan is viewed as a bladesman and warrior now. Well, in the more earlier years of the Heresy, it was very much a question on who would win between him and Fulgrim. And it was a hotly anticipated matchup, at least for me. And look, you all know how much I love Jagatai, but considering Fulgrim's victories over Ferrus Manus, you have to say he would rightly and deservedly be the favoured to win. So Fulgrim in his prime, the Primarch he was made to be, absolutely could rival and beat any Primarch in battle. He really could. He has more than a chance against any of them. Now, secondly, we have a Primarch who could so inspire with his words alone that the Emperor awarded him his personal Aquila. Sure, it's the symbol emblazoned on all Space Marines across the galaxy now, but back in the days of the Great Crusade, it was the symbol of the Emperor, and the Emperor alone. To see it given to Fulgrim and his legion was a huge show of recognition, of respect, a sign that the master of mankind personally favoured and rewarded Fulgrim for his ability. No one else had that. No Praetorian, no War Master, no Angel. None of their legions earned the reward that the Emperor's children did. As much as we loved the words of Sanguinius upon the walls at Terra, standing in defiance against the forces of chaos, if that had been Fulgrim standing there, delivering that epic speech, it would have been words that echoed throughout the ages. Words we'd be able to recite right now, without even thinking about them. Words that would have filled the defenders with a resolve that even Sanguinius couldn't have mustered. Because that's what Fulgrim was made to do. That's where he excelled, more than any other. All the Primarchs had the innate ability to command, to lead, but Fulgrim stood apart. That's a talent that's beyond invaluable. And lastly, Fulgrim's name is one that should most definitely be ranked amongst the greatest tacticians, the rivals for War Master, upon ability alone, yet a name we rarely if ever see mentioned in those conversations. As a question, who is perhaps one of, if not the greatest tactician, strategist? Rabute Guilliman is a name you will often see brought up. Undoubtedly a strong contender, if not the outright winner. The man who has single-handedly saved the galaxy more times than one. And I wouldn't disagree. And yet we have seen Fulgrim completely and utterly outwit Guilliman, outplan and out-strategize him, from beginning to end of a campaign, which resulted in Guilliman's death at the hands of the then demon-elevated Fulgrim. If you want to read it for yourself, it's a flashback of Guilliman's death within the first installment of the Dark Imperium trilogy, and it's a very rare sighting of Guilliman being completely and utterly outsmarted. And the fact that it comes after Fulgrim's ascension to demonhood, to me, makes it all the greater. A time when we know it was so hard for Fulgrim to not become bored and distracted. It's a masterpiece from beginning to end. Again, a truly great victory that Fulgrim deserves to get his plaudits for. And it's an example of how good he can be. So we've got a Primarch who could and did defeat a tough fellow Primarch in battle. Not once, but twice. Ultimately decapitating him. Who was easily in the argument of top-tier fighters. A Primarch who could inspire with his words more than any other. Who was alone rewarded with the Emperor's own Aquila. And a Primarch who could outsmart and outwit the greatest of his own brothers upon the battlefield. A mastermind of a strategist. I mean, it's pretty straightforward here. Come on, I know there's someone out there who came into this disregarding the Phoenician completely, but now you've just got that little element of doubt creeping in. And you'd be right to do so. Fulgrim's not amongst my favourite Primarchs, not even close, but his achievements speak for themselves. And so whether you love him or hate him, you have to admit Fulgrim has a pretty solid case to be considered for the greatest of all the Primarchs. But as always everyone, what do you think? Are the Phoenicians' achievements worthy of the greatest title? Does it make him a strong contender? Is it his victories with the blade, or his outsmarting of Guilliman that ranks higher? Or perhaps do you place more value in his ability with words? Is Fulgrim perhaps a strong all-rounder Primarch? One who has strong talents in every area, without being the very best in a particular one? Or do you have reasons why Fulgrim is not the greatest? And if so, why? As always everyone, leave your thoughts in the comments below. Huge thank you to all my subscribers, your support truly means a lot to me, it really does. If you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow. And if you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too. But with that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.